Rob, welcome to the Get Real Studio and Happy New Year in 2023. I thought this would be a great occasion to get together in the studio to talk about some of the recent headlines, really big news in the past week regarding Microsoft and its announcement that it's closing the AltspaceVR platform. AltspaceVR platform, a hugely popular platform for artists and creators and groups that really took the industry, I think, by a little bit of surprise last week when Microsoft says they were going to shut it down. And wanted to kind of just get your take and kind of talk a little bit for the audience around what we think some of the implications are for the business and what happened and what that might mean going forward. So maybe as a way to start out, can you just kind of summarize in your own words what really was in the details of the announcement last week from Microsoft?
Sure. So I think the piece which caught everybody off guard was that they're going to sunset the platform AltspaceVR, which has been around since May of 15 and under Microsoft's control for the last several years after they saved it when it was about to be decommissioned 5 or 6 years ago. And so they've announced that is no longer going to be supported and it'll be shut down. And so as you point out, a lot of folks were caught off guard by that. There's a lot of people, very dedicated community that has been taking advantage of the platform for all sorts of different types of meetings. Really, any gathering that you can imagine that might happen down the street at the local, in the old days, at the local community house, has been meeting in VR. There's some pretty big groups though too. Educators in VR is one of the more prominent ones. And so they announced that Microsoft announced that they were going to no longer support the platform, decommission the platform. They announced some other things as well. A lot of layoffs in some of their other metaverse initiatives as well. They have a mixed reality toolkit, which helps build applications for the AR headset, the HoloLens, and also their Windows mixed reality headset. So that team, I think, is gone now or will be shortly. The deadline for Altspace, by the way, is just a few weeks from now, like March 10th, I think. So typically, when you have a community that's as kind of established as the AltspaceVR community, a company is going to decommission it. You would anticipate that they would do that. That they would do that with some significant lead time, several months, sometimes even as long as a year. But that's not what's happening here. And so these folks are going to need to find, we'll talk about it, but these folks are going to need to find a new platform if they're going to continue on, operating in a similar way with their various gatherings and meetings.
So while this might have been certainly a surprise to the community and surprise to those of us who kind of follow this metaverse space pretty closely, I guess if you blow the time frame out a little bit and try to get a little more context about some other recent announcements we've heard, it maybe is a little more foreshadowed and at least kind of makes a little more sense in a bigger context. What are some other announcements that have happened here in the past month or two that you think kind of foreshadowed a little bit of this Altspace announcement?
Well, I suppose one thing that comes to mind is the announcements that Microsoft made with Meta itself back in the fall at the Meta Connect conference when Microsoft announced that they were going to have their Windows Office platform be available from within the Meta headsets. They announced that there would be support for Teams in the headset, also Azure, their cloud computing platform would be accessible. So they had a number of really high-level initiatives. But at the time, I remember you and I spoke about how it kind of felt potentially somewhat cannibalizing to some of Microsoft's own internal efforts and was a little confusing in that regard. But as we look back now, maybe they were already beginning to think in terms of lessening the efforts internally at Microsoft to support various metaverse directions. And so maybe in hindsight, it feels more aligned as we as we contemplate these recent announcements in combination with the things from a few months ago. The other piece that sometimes the press is talking about, but I don't know, my own take because it's probably not as related is Congress recently decided to turn down the Army's request to buy almost 7,000 of the HoloLens headsets. And so that might not be directly related to the AltspaceVR. Maybe there's some connection to the overall initiative. Microsoft was probably aware before the actual official announcement that there were some concerns that request might not be approved. Nevertheless, the actual announcement, I think, is just a couple of weeks old and just a few days before these more recent announcements from Microsoft. So I don't think that there's a direct cause from that. I mean, these are very different communities, obviously, in the Altspace community, a highly fragmented, kind of almost hobbyist community in a way, and we can talk more about their the lack of support from Microsoft for the Altspace platform for enterprise. But whether it's that or other things, tell me how are you thinking about it all?
Well, I think that, to me, it's taken in the context of, they still continue to move forward with their Microsoft Mesh initiative. I've seen this characterized in the media as, where they see the Microsoft Teams platform evolving to in the coming years, and having elements of metaverse and an AR and a VR component when ready. To me, that's an enterprise product, and that's where Microsoft really has its strong roots and anchors into. So I think that maybe deals with monetization of the platform, could be dealing with where they already have an installed base and a natural customer. But that does leave this artist creator community a little bit in the lurch right now. And as you mentioned before, like there's the countless numbers of interest groups and comedians and artists and performers that are meeting in Altspace religious groups each and every day. And so these smaller businesses, if you will, or interest or community organizations, I think are kind of left a little bit wondering where they go. So I just to close out here, I'd ask you the question, knowing this about the Altspace community, where do you think they wind up? Where do you think the metaverse play is now home for this community is at the end coming out of this news announcement?
Sure. So the platform support, Altspace platform, you could access it via PC, the Mac, or in a, say, Quest headset. And, as we kind of hinted at, highly, highly fragmented community, right? So it won't move in mass, right? It'll probably be fragmented in kind of what directions they take. The Real Studio here is built on the platform. It's from Spatial, which has a number of similarities for some aspects of the Altspace platform, in that it's free, it's easy to use, it's straightforward to becoming a member or hosting an event or so on. Spatial's more positioned to support and does support the enterprise and business and institutional community as well. So it's a logical place because there's a free option for folks to come over and use. Facebook Meta has its own initiatives around Horizons as a communal platform. Haven't seen much from them the last several days, inviting the community from Altspace to go over there and join. We have seen that from the folks at Spatial in terms of encouraging the Altspace users to set up shop, as it were, on the Spatial platform. I know you were thinking about VR chat maybe as a way as another potential platform. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that, certainly Altspace had a real social VR element to it, a community element where you could just kind of go in there and hang out with really anybody around the world that wanted to be there. So I do think that pure social behavior is mapped well to some of the capabilities of VR chat. So I think that some people will look to go there to have that social element. I certainly would echo your sentiments around spatial. I know on the Get Real side, in terms of our clients who've done work in Altspace before, we're reaching out to them to see how we can help them migrate migrate from Altspace to spatial. Spatial's been very public in the past few days around putting out guides and talking to creators about how to move their space. I just think that creator community, the one who really is creating these amazing worlds, those elements and the way that transforms to spatial, I think maps pretty closely. And so, we look forward to helping that community and being there for those businesses and organizations that need some help in moving over, maybe that either can't do themselves, or the importance or the time crunch or the necessity of keeping their organization or their business running. We're actively reaching out to that community. So I think spatial will be a big benefactor of this news. And waiting remains to be seen how the native platforms on Meta Horizon work as well. Certainly, they've got the VR community, native in that headset right now, and so I would expect there to be more activity on that platform as well. Although I would echo your sentiment, saying I have not seen any direct announcement, and certainly Meta has been in the news many times recently around some of the ways that they're restructuring their efforts as well. So. All that to say here as we close, it'll be great to get back in the Get Real studio in a few months after the final date, which I believe is March 10th for AltspaceVR, to kind of see less anecdotally and more real world where some of this community has gone and who some of the new players may be and how that business has changed as a result of this news from Microsoft. So I look forward to joining you back here in the studio to talk about it. So thank you very much.